The thought of camping always amused me. Sitting by the fire at night and talking with your friends, grilling marshmallows and drinking, all while being out in nature. Something about it seemed so peaceful. I shared my thoughts with a couple of close friends, and they were all very positive to the idea. We decided to make it happen and drove out to the woods the next weekend. Ashley, Sarah, Peter, Malcolm, and I were all excited and had packed the car with supplies for the coming 3 days. It really was as fun as I imagined, and during our first night we stayed up until almost 3 a.m. The second day was when things started going wrong. I woke up at around 6 a.m., which, considering the circumstances, wasn't especially weird. The thing that startled me, though, was the silence. The complete and unreal silence. It felt like I had gone deaf. I couldn't hear anything. No wind. Trees rustling, or my friends breathing. I felt a paralyzing fear and didn't dare to move, but shook it off as to being in the woods. I mean, the woods really can play tricks on your mind. I must have fallen back asleep because I woke up from Sarah looking down on me, just a couple of inches from my face. I nearly screamed and asked her what the hell she was doing, but she just laughed it off. Apart from that, the day continued on as normal. It was actually really fun. When it got late in the evening, me and Ashley both had to pee. One of the less fun things to do while camping, and so we walked away together to find a suitable place. The darkness surrounded us, and I really had to concentrate on where to put my feet so I didn't trip over some roots. Ashley suddenly screamed, and I nearly ran to her to find out what had happened, but she looked mortified and stared at something on the ground while holding something in her hand. I focused my eyes on the thing she looked at, and when my gaze had adjusted to the darkness, I saw the outlines. The outlines of bones. Human bones. I screamed as well, a scream of pure horror, and looked up at Ashley. In her hand, she held one of the bones. But what I looked up at wasn't Ashley. Her face had morphed into something that didn't look human. Her cheeks had sunken into her face, and she looked lifeless, pale and dull. She opened her mouth in a scream higher than any human should be able to make escape from her. I froze and just stared at her, convinced I was dreaming. She fell down to the ground and started to shake uncontrollably. I screamed for Sarah, Peter, and Malcolm, and they all came running. Ashley had stopped moving and rested lifeless on the ground. Sarah screamed at me, demanding to know what had happened. Everything was chaos. It wasn't easy, but we all managed to calm down a bit, just so we could gather ourselves and actually talk about what just happened. We inspected Ashley's body, and that was when I noticed it. Her right hand was badly burned, with redness and blisters on it. It was such a contrast to the rest of her now pale body that it was impossible to miss. I connected the dots. That's the hand she was holding the bone with. That was it for me. I wanted to leave right that second. We left as soon as we managed to, leaving Ashley and almost all of our stuff behind. I sat quietly in the car and stared out of the window. I heard Malcolm breathing excessively behind me in the back seat, and I turned around, thinking he was stressed. His eyes were wide open, and he stared down at his hands. He claimed he felt funny and started breathing even faster. I looked down at his lap, where his hands rested. A bone, a human bone, rested in his hands. Seemingly a rib. My blood turned to ice, and I acted on instinct. I slapped the bone out of his hands, and it flew out of the open car window. I then swore to myself that I never would return here. We came home about 10 minutes ago. I'm relieved that I'm home, but I can't help but think. I really miss those woods. I think I might go back tonight. The decision to venture into Blackwood Forest had been brewing among our group for weeks. The legends and stories that surrounded the forest had only fueled our curiosity. Local tales spoke of strange occurrences, whispers in the night, unexplained shadows, and ghostly apparitions. Yet the call of adventure and the thrill of the unknown compelled us to go against our better judgment. It was a crisp autumn evening when we finally gathered our gear and set off. The forest greeted us with a cacophony of colors as the leaves had taken on brilliant shades of red, orange, and gold. The air was cool, laden with the earthy scent of fallen leaves. With each step, the path grew narrower and more obscure, as if the forest itself were trying to hide its secrets. We set up camp near a small meandering stream that reflected the eerie glow of the setting sun. The fire crackled, casting long, flickering shadows that danced among the trees. We roasted marshmallows and regaled one another with ghost stories, all the while scoffing at the superstitions that had kept others away. As darkness descended upon us, the forest underwent a transformation. The once familiar sounds of rustling leaves and distant animal calls took on an ominous quality. Every gust of wind seemed like a ghostly sigh, and the rustling leaves sounded like footsteps drawing nearer. We brushed it off as our imaginations running wild. But deep down, unease had settled in. Around the campfire, we huddled closer together. The fire's warmth was our only defense against the encroaching darkness, and our laughter grew more forced with each passing hour. It was as if the forest itself was testing our resolve, pushing us to the limits of our courage. As we retreated to our tents, the sense of foreboding only intensified. Lying in my tent, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every creak of a branch, every snapping twig sent shivers down my spine. Just as I was starting to drift into an uneasy slumber, I heard it. The faintest whisper, a voice that seemed to emanate from the very air around me. Leave this place. I jolted awake, my heart pounding in my chest. I called out to my friends, but their voices were distant, as if they were trapped in a dream. Fumbling with the zipper of my tent, I stumbled out into the night. The forest had transformed, bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The once clear stream had turned into a dark, swirling abyss. And there, in the distance, a figure emerged from the shadows. A spectral, ethereal presence that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Leave before it's too late, the figure whispered again, its voice filled with sorrow. Panic set in, and I ran back to the campsite. My friends were still in their tents, trapped in a restless slumber. I shook them awake, and together we fled, leaving behind our campsite and the haunting whispers of Blackwood Forest. As we stumbled out of the forest and into the first light of a dawn, the sense of dread slowly began to lift. We never returned to Blackwood Forest, and we never spoke of that night again. But the memory of the haunting whispers and the spectral figure in the dark would stay with us forever. A chilling reminder that some stories are more than just superstitions. They are warnings, and Blackwood Forest held secrets we were never meant to uncover.